welcome. I am Blaine. I run the Oregon Motivation Center, and I'm here to talk to you about my new book, Museum of the Mind. Now, we're going to go over that. We're going to start with chapter 1, and we're just going to work our way through it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and eventually I'll answer them. All right. I guess in chapter 1 might be a little stretch. This book has 19 chapters. They cover a variety of topics. And we'll start off with chapter 0. Hello and welcome. Every person carries within them a landscape of memory, imagination, and potential. A private world that shapes how they think, feel, and live. For most, that world remains unseen, operating quietly in the background as habits, instincts, and emotional patterns. But with the right kind of attention, that inner world can be visited, explored, and reshaped. That is what hypnosis allows us to do. Despite what popular media suggests, hypnosis is not a matter of control or surrender. It's not about something else taking over your mind. It's about you learning to communicate with your own deeper systems. The non-conscious patterns that guide your emotions, your behaviors, and your sense of possibility. In this book, I'll introduce you to an approach I call the Museum of the Mind. A framework for understanding and transforming inner experience through guided imagery and hypnotic awareness. It's both philosophy and a technique. A way to navigate the living architecture of the mind. The idea is simple. Imagine your inner world as a vast museum filled with exhibits that represent every belief, memory, and emotion you've ever known. Some halls are bright and familiar, others are dim and forgotten. Each room holds a piece of who you are, the art and archive of your life. Through hypnosis, you become visitor and curator of the museum. You will learn how to guide people to observe without judgment, to update what no longer serves them, and to discover new ways of being that align with peace, trust, and intention. The chapters ahead will guide you through this process. We'll begin with the foundation, the 4 core states of consciousness and how hypnosis bridges them. We'll explore how the non-conscious mind communicates through symbol, emotion, and sensation. Then we'll walk room by room through the museum itself, from the entry hall to the vault, from the gallery of life to the wings of integration and return. Each section includes reflections and exercises that invite you to not just read about hypnosis, but to experience it from the inside. You learn how to design hypnotic sessions that feel alive, communicate respectfully with the non-conscious, and how to carry the effects of trance into everyday life, turning awareness into art and imagination into change. You'll learn how to do that part. The book is not only written for practitioners or clinicians, but for anyone interested in the human mind. For those who sense that there is more to thought than thinking, more to healing than understanding, and more to self than what appears on the surface. My goal is not to convince you of hypnosis, but to reintroduce you to your own capacity for inner dialogue. You already hold every resource you need for transformation. This text simply helps you find the door. It reminds you how to walk through it. So as you turn the page, take a slow breath. Notice the quiet space within that opens when you pause. That stillness is the threshold. your museum waiting to be explored. Let's step inside. So part 1 is the foundations of consciousness and change. So before we can step into the museum itself, we must understand the foundation upon which it's built, consciousness. Hypnosis is not an act of magic or manipulation. It is a natural function of the mind. We move in and out of hypnotic states every day. When we focus deeply, drift into a daydream, or lose yourself in music or memory, these states are not strange, they are human. To work with the mind effectively, we must first understand its rhythms. Awareness is not fixed but fluid, shifting through patterns of attention that change how we think, how we feel, and respond to life. The same current that powers our waking thoughts also drives our dreams, our imagination, and our healing. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. In these chapters, you'll come to understand how your states of consciousness determine your experience of reality, why the theta state holds the key to deep change, how the non-conscious mind listens, learns, and adapts, and how simple hypnotic processes can help you communicate across that boundary with clarity and trust. Before we build the museum of the mind, we must learn the terrain it rests upon. These foundations are the soil of transformation, the living consciousness from which all imagination, healing, and change emerge. On to Chapter 1. Every experience we have unfolds across a shifting landscape. We move through it every day without noticing. Waking, focusing, daydreaming, drifting, and sleeping and dreaming. Each of these states of consciousness represents a particular rhythm of the mind, a pattern of awareness that determines how we think, feel, and respond to the world. When we understand these states, hypnosis stops being a mystery and it becomes what it truly is, a natural form of focus and inward attention that we all experience, that we can learn to guide intentionally. There's the 4 states of consciousness. For simplicity, I describe consciousness through 4 basic states: beta, alpha, theta, and delta. They aren't rigid categories, but rather zones of awareness that flow one into another like colors of a gradient. Beta is our wide-awake, problem-solving state. It's where we analyze, plan, and navigate the world. Beta is sharp and outwardly focused, perfect for driving a car or having a conversation, but too much of it can create mental noise and tension. Alpha is a natural daydream state. We slip into it when we stare out the window, lose track of time, or become absorbed in a story. Alpha is soft, creative, and receptive. The critical mind loosens its grip here, allowing ideas and images to drift freely. Theta is a threshold between waking and dreaming, the waking dream state. That's what we'll be using it for. It's here that imagination and reality merge. During hypnosis, meditation, or the moments just before sleep, we sink into theta. That is where emotional learning and interchange become possible, because the non-conscious mind is listening closely. Delta is the deep sleep state. It restores the body and resets the mind. In hypnosis, we rarely reach delta because full sleep limits conscious participation. But knowing it exists reminds us that consciousness continues to flow, even when awareness recedes. When we practice hypnosis, we aren't imposing an artificial state. We are directing the natural flow, the natural descent from beta to theta with intention. Hypnosis is not a trick or a performance, it's a collaboration with the brain's innate ability to shift modes. So we have the 4 states of brainwaves. There's beta, it's 13 to 30 hertz. That's when you're fully awake, alert, and analyzing things. There's alpha, it's 8 to 12 hertz. Theta is 4 to 7. And delta is 1 to 3 hertz. These can be measured easily with tools that do the EEG stuff. These floor states can be imagined like the floors of a building. Beta occupies the top floor with bright lights and conversation. Alpha is the lounge below where lights soften and ideas begin to blend. Theta is the quiet gallery underneath, dim and dreamlike, filled with symbolism. Delta is the deep foundation where the light goes out completely and the system repairs itself. In everyday life, we constantly ride the elevator between these levels. Reading a good book might lower us from beta to alpha. Listening to music can bring us to the edge of theta. Drifting off to sleep carries us deeper still. The skill of hypnosis lies in learning to hold the door open between these floors, remaining aware enough to observe, yet relaxed enough to let the deeper mind speak. Hypnosis and meditation are very similar. Both are ways of guiding attention inward. I'd say that hypnosis is a form of meditation. The main difference between the two is intention. In meditation, we usually seek stillness or observation. In hypnosis, we enter with a purpose, to experience something vividly enough that it changes us. When someone is guided, they aren't under anything. They are immersed. Well, that's odd. It's weird that it's so quiet now. How does this sound? Is this too loud? When someone is guided into hypnosis, they aren't under anything. They are immersed, consciously stepping into the theater of mind where feelings, images, and ideas can be rehearsed safely. Inside this space, a person can simulate a new experience so complete that the nervous system records them as real. A confident presentation, a peaceful night's sleep, or the release of an old habit can all be experienced first in theta, where the body feels it, the emotions live it, and the mind accepts it as truth. We often treat imagination as pretend, but the nervous system does not see it that way. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth salivates or reacts to the sourness of a lemon. When you picture a loved one in danger, your heart races. The body responds to imagery with genuine physiological changes. In hypnosis, this response becomes the bridge between symbolic experience and physical outcome. This is why hypnotic experience can be so profound. When guided skillfully, the mind rehearses new behaviors and emotional responses with such richness that they begin to unfold naturally in the waking life. In essence, the theta state becomes a laboratory for transformation. If anyone has any questions about anything, go ahead and put them in the comments and, like and subscribe, those things. In the sections ahead, we'll explore how to navigate that inner space more intentionally. We'll build the museum of the mind, where you can walk among the exhibits of your own thoughts and experiences and learn to restore them to harmony. But it begins here, with understanding that your mind is not divided between awake and asleep, consciousness and unconsciousness. It is a spectrum of awareness, always capable of transformation. Alright, let's move on to chapter 2. This is my book, Museum of the Mind. It'll be releasing November 1st. Chapter 2, the theta state and the realness of the imagined. There is a special moment between waking and dreaming where thought becomes image and image becomes sensation. It is a space both quiet and alive, logical yet fluid. The space between where imagination takes on the weight of reality. This is theta, the rhythm of the mind that makes hypnosis possible. Theta is not a mythic condition or a trance imposed from outside. It is a familiar mental neighborhood we pass through every day. When you drift between sleep and wakefulness and find yourself half aware of a dream, that's theta. When you are so absorbed in a story or memory that the outside world fades, that too is theta. It is a doorway through which ideas become experiences and experiences become new patterns of being. Beta is the alert state. It's that 13 to 30 hertz range. It's like standing out in the sunlight of noon. Alpha's daydreaming is like twilight. Boundaries soften, where imagination paints in vivid colors and logic loosens its grip. Just enough to let the deeper self system responds as though the experience were happening in the physical world. This is not an illusion. It's a simulation. The brain's task has never been to record the truth, only to model reality well enough to survive it. Theta is the mode where these models are most pliable. It is the bridge where symbolic experience reshapes emotional and physiological reality. Hi everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. When a person in hypnosis imagines confidence, the body mirrors that imagination. The shoulders straighten, the body steadies, and the tone of voice changes. When they imagine calm, the parasympathetic nervous system activates, lowering blood pressure and heart rate. When they imagine freedom from a habit, the brain begins to build a new network of expectation and behavior to match that vision. Feeling is the language of the non-conscious. Words alone rarely convince the non-conscious. But when an imagined experience is felt as real, when it carries texture, sound, color, and emotion, the non-conscious accepts it as information about the world. It says, this is how we live now, and this is real. That's why suggestion in hypnosis go of it, and metaphor. The non-conscious mind speaks in imagery, not sentences. A locked door might represent protection. A bright light might mean realization. Interpreting these symbols isn't about decoding universal meanings, but about asking, what does this feel like for you specifically? Every image is personal. The symbol is a bridge between the language of feeling and the logic of thought. Let's see. I'm going to pause real quick. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. All right. Chapter 3, The Non-Conscious Mind. Throughout this book, I use the term non-conscious mind instead of the unconscious mind or subconscious mind, which are common terms used in hypnosis books and things. We will talk about it. And that's because I like it more. It's just the processes that are running that are not within your conscious awareness. So it's the non-conscious things. So I'll talk about it anthropomorphically, sort of, in an anthropomorphic sort of way. But remember, it is a collection of processes that occur outside of your consciousness, but it's not a personality or another person that is inside of your brain. It is simply automation meant to help you live for better or worse. If it is misguided, collection of processes, that is okay because we can align them with our conscious goals. When we work hypnotically, we communicate directly with the non-conscious processes. We aren't commanding them, we are inviting them into dialogue. They hold the automatic patterns that shape our life, and by entering theta, we create a space where those patterns can be renegotiated. In popular media, hypnosis is often depicted as a spectacle. The performer gives commands, subject obeys them without question. While that image makes for an entertaining stage show, it bears little resemblance to how hypnosis creates lasting change. Stage suggestions are designed for amusement, and they fade as soon as the lights come up. True hypnotic transformation is far deeper. It is a process of collaboration, trust, and meaning, not mere instruction. For genuine, enduring change to occur, the non-conscious mind must be fully assured that the shift is safe and beneficial, and free from unforeseen harm. It accepts new direction only when it recognizes a positive outcome will outweigh any potential costs. Most people think of the mind as something that's divided. The consciousness on top, the non-conscious or unconscious is beneath it. One seen, one hidden, one intelligent, one primitive, but this is a misunderstanding. A relic of early psychology that framed the inner world as a dark basement filled with secrets. The mind is not a house with a trapdoor. It is a living ecosystem, and every part of it, from the most deliberate thought to the smallest reflex, is alive and active right now. This is why I prefer the term non-conscious instead of unconscious. The non-conscious parts of you are not asleep. They are not unreachable. They are simply separate, but always participating. The non-conscious isn't something we have to uncover. It's something we have to learn to listen to and to interact with. Think of your mind as a river. At the surface are the ripples of conscious thought. Words, plans, judgment, and sensations. Beneath that surface, powerful currents flow. Emotions, memory, reflexes, and instincts. Those deeper waters. Your heartbeat, your breathing rhythm, the automatic way you check the mirror before turning the car. All are guided by non-conscious intelligence. It regulates not just your physiology, but your personality patterns, how you respond to tone, to danger, to affection. It holds the sum of all your experiences that you've learned and your learned reactions. You don't have to think about blinking. The mind does it for you. The conscious mind is powerful but narrow. It can focus on only a few things at once. It handles sequencing, analysis, and language, the tasks that demand attention. The non-conscious handles all the rest. In hypnosis, meditation, and even creative flow, the conscious mind relaxes its grip. It's as if a spotlight on stage dims, revealing an orchestra that's been playing beneath the surface all along. We start to hear how memory, imagination, and emotion harmonize. The deeper minds come into view. The great irony is that we often try to think our way out of emotional problems using logic in the beta brainwave state. When the systems that created those patterns don't speak the beta state's language, they speak in feeling, imagery, and rhythm. So hypnosis allows that conversation to take place in a language the non-conscious mind can understand and work with. The non-conscious mind learns not from explanation, but from experience. That is why telling yourself, I should be calm, rarely works. But imagining yourself calm, breathing it, feeling it, rehearsing it, does. The non-conscious mind updates its patterns when it encounters vivid new experiences, not verbal arguments. This is the key to hypnotic change. In hypnosis, we generate experiences rich enough to educate the non-conscious parts of your mind. We don't command it, we demonstrate it. We show it through sensory imagination what peace, confidence, or release feels like, and it adapts accordingly. The non-conscious mind doesn't judge what is real. It only measures consistency and emotional truth. If the new pattern feels authentic and repeated enough, if the new pattern feels authentic and is repeated enough, it rewrites itself. Inside the non-conscious mind are countless parts, autonomous patterns that each perform a task. One part protects you from embarrassment by filtering speech. Another part makes you flinch before danger. Some parts were formed in childhood. Some parts were formed in childhood, others yesterday. Together they form a living network that maintains identity and survival. When we use hypnosis to interact with these parts, we aren't fixing them, we're updating their roles. We help the protector become a teacher, the warrior become a planner, the critic become an editor. Every part began as an attempt to help even maladaptive behaviors were born from care. They simply haven't learned better methods yet. Let's see. Hypnosis provides a calm, symbolic classroom where these parts can receive new information without defensiveness. We give them context, compassion, and an image of what balance feels like. A common misconception is that the deeper mind must be forced or overridden. In truth, the non-conscious is not a student to be corrected. It is a collaborator that simply needs clarity. It wants congruence between what you say and what you want, and what you actually imagined and expected. When you declare, I want peace, but picture struggle, the non-conscious hears the images, not the words. When you visualize peace and feel it, the non-conscious aligns immediately. That is why hypnotic work is so gentle. It is based on agreement, not authority. The hypnotist guides, the non-conscious leads. Together they explore, adjust, and integrate. Language is the tool of the conscious mind, but not the non-conscious. The non-conscious mind communicates in symbols. Dreams, spontaneous images, sensations, colors, and sounds all are part of its vocabulary. When a client in hypnosis says, I see a door, they aren't inventing it. Their mind is speaking a language of thresholds. When they feel warmth in the chest, the non-conscious is signaling openness. Learning to interpret these symbols doesn't require a dictionary. It requires curiosity. In this way, hypnosis becomes a conversation between the mind and metaphor, logic and feeling. The hypnotist doesn't impose meaning. They facilitate transition. Every innovation, every poem, every sudden solution that appears in the shower, that's the non-conscious at work. It processes information continuously beyond awareness and offers insight when the conscious mind quiets down enough to receive it. In this sense, hypnosis is also a creative practice. It invites intuition to the table. By entering theta and engaging imagination, we tap into the same wellspring that artists, inventors, and mystics draw from. The mind that heals is the same mind that creates. Understanding the non-conscious changes how we approach change itself. So trying to conquer impulses or suppress habits, we form alliances. We become fluent in our own inner language. We listen to what emotion and imagery are trying to say, rather than treating them as noise and silence. This is the foundation of the Museum of the Mind. Each exhibit, each behavior, belief, or memory was placed there by the non-conscious for a reason. Our task is not to throw exhibits away, but to recurate them, to decide which still serve us and which need to be restored, reframed, or retired. As we move deeper into the technique, remember that hypnosis is never a battle of wills. It is a meeting of minds, the conscious and non-conscious mind agreeing to work together towards a shared goal. In the next section, we'll begin constructing the Museum of the Mind itself. Actually, it's not true. We're going to begin doing the induction. But that's fine. Close enough. All right, chapter 4, my induction. This is one that I do most commonly. It works really well. It's really solid. If I find out more about it, tune in next time.